നാം ഇപ്പോൾ ലോക്സഭയിൽ ശശി തരൂർ MP സംസാരിക്കുന്നു. തത്സമയം ഒന്ന് കാണാം.
National Disaster Management Authority, the national linchpin of this act, remains enslaved to the Ministry of Home Affairs and has no administrative or financial powers of its own, having to route even its minutest decisions through the Home Ministry. A needlessly arduous and time-consuming process. It's also been reported in the media that the NDMA is massively understaffed. I was hoping the minister would address that in his reply, at least if he's not done so in his introduction. The buck has to stop somewhere, Mr. Chair. And for better coordination of disaster management and mitigation efforts, the NDMA should have been it. They should have been upgraded to a department of the government of India, even if not to a ministry, but it remains subordinate to the Home Ministry. Even the question of its leadership has not been satisfactorily addressed. It's officially chaired by the Prime Minister. It's normally overseen by Vice Chairperson, who has the rank of a Cabinet Minister. But bafflingly, Clause 3 of this bill says any member of the NDMA is authorized to perform the day-to-day functions of the authority, forgetting that the political heft of a ministerial rank is vital for dealing with states and other ministries and departments of the Union. So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, this bill, in its ostensible pursuit to decentralize the decision-making process regarding funds, manages to do something utterly bizarre. It dilutes the entire purpose of a National Disaster Response Fund by removing the specific uses for which the fund was intended. One of the most pressing criticisms of the old Act was the excessive centralization of fund allocation. Many of our states have complained about this, especially when disasters are categorized as severe. The debilitating human cost of such a disaster demands from the center a sense of urgency, completely absent in the proposed framework. That the center is bereft of the sense of urgency, let alone of any compassion. It has proved very often, especially when disaster relief funds from the NDRF were casually denied to Tamil Nadu and only disbursed to Karnataka after an inordinate delay. In 2023, when Tamil Nadu and Karnataka found themselves on the brink of catastrophe, they were compelled to move the Supreme Court to access the much-needed NDRF funds. Funds they had a claim to. In Karnataka, and yes, Himachal has been mentioned, others I'm sure will do so. Let me speak of the cases I know. In Karnataka, 196 out of 236 taluks had been officially designated as severely drought-affected by the interministerial central team, and the subcommittee of the National Executive Committee recommended financial aid for the state, but despite this, the state, Congress ruled, I admit, had to wait over 6 months to receive the funds, long after the prescribed 1-month period following the IMCT report. This deplorable delay deprived the state of essential resources to protect its citizens and frankly violated their fundamental right to life of the people of Karnataka. Tamil Nadu suffered a similar fate as well, especially in the aftermath of Cyclone Michaung, when there was a complete dearth of necessary funds and the central government was indifferent. Now, while we in Kerala had long been demanding that the Wayanad landslide be declared a national disaster, this request was dismissed in a letter to me by the MOS Home on 10th November, claiming there were sufficient funds in the State Disaster Relief Fund. The justification provided was that existing guidelines on the SDRF and NDRF offer no provisions for such a declaration. The lack of financial aid from the NDRF, under the perversely misguided assumption that the SDRF would suffice, has left us in an unenviable position, sir. With no interim aid forthcoming, Kerala has been left with no option but to insist on the declaration of a landslide as a level 3 disaster, which will at least allow for the mobilization of some resources and support. But many of us had raised this much earlier. No sooner had the landslides ravaged Wayanad, I wrote to the Honorable Home Minister on the 31st of July, requesting him to recognize this monumental cataclysm as a calamity of severe nature in terms of paragraph 8.1 of the MP Lads guidelines. So we could have all helped at that time. We could have recommended works up to 1 crore, I beg your pardon, from MP Lads funds. But the request was ignored. The Minister of State wrote to me in early November to tell me that the Interministerial Central Team, IMCT, had visited Wayanad from the 8th to 10th of August, and the central government would take action based on its request. August, sir. They're supposed to take action within 1 month according to the existing Act. To this date, no action has been taken and no additional funds have been arranged for Wayanad, sir. How can we accept this? Now, this bill, Mr. Chairman, is an excellent case of minimum decentralization, maximum declamation.
ദുരന്ത നിവാരണ ബില്ലിൽ